So the pricing of Google Stadia was just announced, and to be honest, it could be better. But beyond the pricing, the biggest concern you should have is if you have an internet data cap. Because if you do and you want to get Google Stadia, the game streaming platform will take up virtually all of your data every single month. This is proof as to why we are not ready for cloud gaming to become mainstream yet. Let's get into it.
Skip it up and that up.
So Google had an official stream yesterday outlining Google Stadia, what kind of internet requirements you're going to need, pricing, so on and so forth. And I don't know how to feel. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's start off with internet speeds, what you're going to need, and why I think you're probably going to need more. But anyway, let's begin. So here is the graph here that Google has. It says Stadia supports a range of resolutions and internet speeds. So if you have an internet of 5 megabits per second, you can do 720p 30 FPS. The recommended minimum they say for Google Stadia should be 10 megabits per second, where you can do 720p 60 FPS in full stereo. They recommend for 1080p 20 megabits per second. That'll get you HDR video, 60 FPS, and 5.1 Dolby Digital Surround. And then if you want to go all out and do 4K to get, 4K HDR video, 60 FPS, and 5.1 Dolby Digital Surround, you do 35 megabits per second, which there's a lot of people who do have internet that quick now. I have gigabit internet where I work at now, so I could definitely do that. But here are the other announcements that they made in terms of pricing and games, so on and so forth. This is coming from Kotaku.com. I'll have a link to their article below in the description. You can check it out. Some stuff I think is cool. Some stuff I'm very mixed on. I think you'll know which is which because you're probably going to be like, are you serious too? So let's begin. Google announced Baldur's Gate 3 and Ghost Recon Breakout for Stadia. Nothing wrong with that. The latter with a new trailer. Don't worry, the former is also coming to PC. Other games announced include Guilt, an adventure game from developer Tequila Works, and a multiplayer Overcooked-style game called Get Packed from Moonshine Studios. The Division 2 is going to be there. Stadia Pro is the official service at $10 a month, which will give you access to the service's games at 4K resolution, 60 frames per second. This won't include all games, though. Newer ones will be purchasable separately. You heard that right. And guess what? The games are going to cost you just as much as if you bought them on a PS4, Xbox One, or PC. You're paying full price to play games in the cloud. Wow. I'm also not cool with this, dude. The controller is $70 standalone. Better be a damn good controller. Then there's the Stadia's Founders Edition, which will launch later this year for $130. It comes with a Chromecast Ultra, a Stadia controller, a copy of Destiny 2, along with the new Shadowkeep expansion, a 3-month subscription, along with a 3-month Buddy Pass. Other Stadia games include Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Doom Eternal, the new Tomb Raider trilogy, Final Fantasy 15, Darksiders Genesis, Metro Exodus, and many others. Now, Google says as of now, it's one person per Google Stadia account, but in the future, they're going to have family sharing plans, so they'll give you some kind of bargain price eventually in the future. Like originally, they didn't say, that wasn't said, but then Google's like, no, we're going to have a family plan, we swear. So that should make people happy if you can actually afford with the data cap to get this. And at launch, if you're a Stadia user, you can play Stadia exclusively on Pixel 3 and 3a devices. However, you'll be able to create your account and make subscription and game purchases from any Android M Plus or iOS 11 Plus device that has access to the Stadia app. And here's a list of other games that are going to be available on Google Stadia. So it is what it is. I'm not uber excited about it. And the fact that they want you to buy games and purchase games separately instead of it being included in some kind of subscription plan doesn't sit well with me, but okay. But here's the other problem too, is if you want to actually get the ultimate Stadia experience, 4K HDR 60 FPS, and you have a data cap, boy, oh boy, I got some bad news for you. This is how much bandwidth you are going to use for the different settings, say 1080p, 4K, 720p, how much bandwidth you're going to use per hour with Google Stadia. get ready. If you want to do the top of the line 4K HDR 60 FPS streaming, it's going to be 15.75 gigabytes an hour for 1 hour. 9 gigabytes per hour for 1080p, and 4.5 gigabytes per hour for 720p, which even 720p after a while is going to add up. But you want to know how fast you'll get to a terabyte of data on your internet if you're gaming at 4K on Google Stadia? Only going to take you 65 hours to do that. Now you could step down on Google Stadia to 1080p 60 FPS, and to reach a terabyte it'll take you 113 hours per month. But you may have to do other things on the internet besides play games, and if you have a 1 terabyte data cap, that's a problem. And that's the problem with cloud gaming right now. There's 2 reasons why Google Stadia proves that cloud gaming isn't ready yet. First off, I talked about how much bandwidth you're going to need, and if you have a data cap, especially if you're trying to game in 4K, 65 hours in, you're going to reach a terabyte. If you have a terabyte data cap, you're done. Data cap, you can't go past it unless you pay some either exorbitant fee or whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of people throughout the country, at least in the United States, that have data caps. I think they're absolutely ridiculous. I think they're highway robbery, and it's the way for internet service providers to rob the consumer blind. But they exist, and until they cease to exist, if they ever cease to exist, cloud gaming isn't a viable option in those areas that have data caps. Luckily, for now, I don't. But who knows? That could change in the future if my ISP decides to get greedier, which they probably will. And secondly, here's why Google Stadia is going to fail. They're having the audacity to make you purchase games for the same price that you would pay to go to a store and get a physical copy. Who sat there and thought that was a good idea? I want to know who at Google said, you know what? These games are just in the cloud. No one's actually going to get any data. You're not like when you're paying for digital distribution. You actually get the ones and zeros on your computer that make up the game. It's not like you're getting a physical copy. Let's make them pay the same price to have access to a game. Hey, Google, what happens if Google Stadia fails and someone bought 10 games for $60 each? That's $600, not including tax. What happens? Where do their games go? Where does their investment go? I know where it goes. It goes up into the thin air. Whereas if you buy a physical game, now look, there's an argument to be made. Even if you buy a physical game, you still got to get the downloads and the patches, and sometimes the game is broken if you don't get them. I hear you on that. But at least you have something that's probably playable if you buy a PS4, PS5, or Xbox One or next Xbox game. If Google Stadia goes under and you purchase games, oh well. And that's the problem with cloud gaming. They have to figure out the pricing. They have to figure out what to do with data caps. Look, I know why it's happening with the pricing, with games being full price. If you want to purchase other games, like you're buying them from GameStop or whatever, or Steam or whatever the case may be, developers and publishers want to get paid. I get that. But you can't expect the consumer to risk making such a pricey investment on literally nothing, not even data. It's not even digital distribution. And if that service goes under, like OnLive did, what happens to their games? What happens, Google? You going to refund everybody? Look, I understand a lot of these services. Look, I understand cloud gaming is the future, and they're trying to figure out how to make the proper business model. But a lot of these companies trying to be the first out of the gate with cloud gaming are going to fall on their swords and fail until they figure out the proper business model. And I can tell you right now, with Google asking you to pay full price for games in the cloud, they're definitely going to fall on their sword. I wouldn't be crazy enough to do that, and I'm sure most people wouldn't either. So they have to figure out another way to make cloud gaming profitable without making us pay for games like we're just going to GameStop to pick them up. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.